All right. So hopefully it was a smooth week for everyone. Um the past week, I know that it was an adjustment. I know this upcoming week, our second week, is still weird to be on Zoom, but we got to make do. Let me actually switch to my face since we don't need that test right now. Firstly, thank you for the feedback from the survey. I did read those feedback. Some of you who asked me individual questions, I'm going to get back with you. I'm going to send remind messages to you if you send me an individual message question about anything. So just heads up, be looking out for that. If you have not filled out the survey yet, please do fill out the survey about how the past week went. Generally, the responses I got was that we're cool with the 4 lessons. I know there are some exceptions, but generally the majority said we're cool with the 4 lessons. That's pacing is fine. Generally, we said that Zoom video Hangout is still the preferred method live, so we still continue to do that. So that's generally the feedback about how that has been going. So we will continue that. Attendance is going to change slightly here. I did a training for the district about this online learning last week where they changed up, or they told us some information about what they wanted. And so just for your information, I always want to share the most updated information I get. Attendance is actually only going to be counted on Tuesdays and on Fridays. That is what the district said. However, some of your classes and teachers might still require attendance for their class for whatever reason every day. So just do whatever your teacher says. But I'm just going to update y'all with the most updated information I have, which is that attendance is Tuesdays and Fridays where it has to be submitted to the district. And so kind of just the way I'm going to do that is just basically just based on you submitting your work and you joining the Zoom sessions or messaging me. I don't foresee that being a problem. I know we're all committed to learning, but just heads up, that is the information from the district. Attendance is Tuesdays and Fridays now, but your teachers may require you to do attendance in general. I'm going to still be keeping track of attendance for my own purposes, so I know who was here for the Zoom video, who was not. And so if you just joined, just send a message on the group chat saying here. But just for your reference, for official purposes, it's just actually Tuesdays and Fridays. Okay, so that's just an update. Grading for last week's grade, because it wasn't kind of just figuring it out, I just did a completion grade. If you submitted to me the I graded 2 of the practices. I think the trig graph practice and the trig identities practice. As long as you submitted, I gave you 100 completion grade. As we were just figuring out the first week, just wanted to give an easy grade. Moving forward, we will be doing regular class grades. Like if you get it right or wrong, it would be a percentage. But just thought I'd make it easy for the first week. So that is just a completion grade as long as you submitted it. So just heads up about that. I have written some notes. What else was I going to say? Oh, end of the 6 weeks is coming up here. I sent the calendar on the Google Classroom. The 6 weeks ends in next week, right? And so if you have any missing assignments for any of your classes, I'd encourage you to talk to your teachers. If you need anything you need to redo, next week is the last week of the 6 weeks. So just take note of that and look at the calendar I post on Google Classroom so you can see what we're doing in my classes. For grading purposes, I don't have my TAs. I have 4 of them. I hate grading, my least favorite part of the job. So bear with me if I'm a little bit slower than usual on my grading. I will do my best. I'm probably just gonna pick 2 or 3 things out of the 4 things that y'all turn in and just grade those. You know, also can't self-grade yourselves because we're not in a classroom. So be patient with me with grading, but there will be every week 2 to 3 grades for grading purposes. Okay, so that's just a couple of updates. So again, if you just joined, attendance is actually just Tuesdays and Fridays, but I'm just going to keep track so I know who's been joining. Grading, completion grade for last week 100. If you did it, moving forward, it won't be completion grade. It'll be actually what you got right and wrong. 6 weeks ends next week, so you want to make sure you get all the assignments that you need to turn in. Okay, for last week, the answers that so like I know how y'all turn in your practice. I do want to make sure that you get feedback on how you did, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a picture, either on Remind or Google Classroom, of the worked out problem so that you can then check your work so you can learn to make sure that you did everything right. Okay, so just be on the lookout for that. Don't ever throw away your practices even after you submitted them on Google Classroom, unless if it has, I don't know if there's a way for you to access them, but I am going to every week after everyone has submitted them, send a picture of the worked out problems so that you can look at your work, and that it would be a way you can kind of get feedback on what you did. Okay. So that's that about grades. Communication, continue to communicate with me. Any kind of feedback you have, anything you want me to know, any accommodations you need. Communication is the most important piece because all we have is virtual right now. I can't see you, right? As not as natural of a conversation, and so just continue to communicate with me. All right. What else? We'll continue to have the Zoom on Friday for answering questions for the week, which will be at 10. If you need any individual questions, you can always send me a message on Remind or set up a separate Zoom call. STAR testing, I sent a remind about the STAR testing. Just want to make sure everybody is clear because I got some questions on what that meant. So for STAR testing, if you are y'all are currently either sophomores or juniors. So for the STAR testing purposes, if you are a sophomore and you are in a STAR tested subject class, you do not have to take that STAR test for this year, and you do not have to take it ever to graduate. As long as you pass the class, which many of y'all will apply to your classes, then you don't have to take that STAR test. Is removed as a graduation requirement, okay? So for STAR testing purposes, if you're in a STAR tested class, which I think English 2 is what the majority of y'all are in, right, for this year, yeah. You don't have to take the English 2 STAR test. As long as you pass the class, it is removed as a graduation requirement. Usually you have 5 STAR tests you have to pass: English 1, English 2, biology, algebra 1, and US history, right? So whatever you are currently in, you don't have to take that one for even for the future. You don't have to retake it next year or whatever. So that's just an update on that if you didn't understand the message I sent. So any questions about, I think that's all the updates. Any questions about the updates? For that, there will still be a practice. The practice will be trig identities. I want you to get one more day of practice on trig identities. So I posted that. All practices are due on Friday, but there's a posted practice on trig identities. So we're just going to go over the test. So let me pull that up. So what you were responsible to do beforehand was I was able to print your ID number along with what answers you put on your Scantron. I don't have the physical tests because they're at school. And so you were supposed to compare the key with your answers so you can see kind of how you did by question and which ones you missed. And then you're supposed to review the test and look at those specific questions. Hopefully you all were able to do that. Actually, let's send me a private message saying yes or no. Yes being you were able to do that, no being you were not able to do that, so I can know who did it, who didn't, for the sake of how I'm gonna kind of do this. So send me a private message saying yes, I did that, no, I did not do that. And I want everybody to respond. So 2, 3. So either yes, I did that, or no, I did not, to the question of, did you get to look at your answers and compare with the test and see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So I'm looking at, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so I got 18 answers. As of right now, about 16 of y'all said that you were able to look at it. Thank you for doing that. If you were not able to, it's okay. Make sure you look at that later. Overall, I know the test, we had 85%, I think, was our average score. So this was our lowest test of like our test of the year. And so the question was, could we go over it? And so I do want to take some time to go over what we need to go over. I'm going to start with commonly missed questions overall, and then I will go to questions that you had as you look back at it, okay? So let me look at the data here. The most commonly missed question was number 22. So I'm going to look at that first. This question here, it's been a while since we did this test, so you may not remember. It's okay if you don't remember the question, but on number 22, we had 36% of us get this question correct. And so that's the one that I want to go over. That's the lowest percentage. We had 36% of us get this right. So if you have access to it, if you want to turn to it, if you just want to look on here, whatever works. So I'll read it and then we'll kind of talk about it. So it says, 3 dogs are sitting in a kitchen and waiting to get their dog food. It turns out that dog A is 4.5 feet from dog B, and dog C is 2.5 feet from dog A, as shown in the diagram below. Note that the 3 dogs' position form a 90-degree angle. The angles formed at dog A and B to the dog food are 40 degrees and 80 degrees respectively, shown in the diagram. How far is dog C from the dog food to the nearest tenth of a foot? So the question is asking how far is dog C from the dog food to the nearest tenth of a foot, right? So that's talking about dog C here, dog food here. So it's asking for this. That's what we're looking for. That's the end goal. How far are those 2 dogs? It says that this is a 90-degree angle right here. So we can go ahead and say that this angle right here is 50 degrees, right? Now, I think I would just, if I was to guess, I don't have access to your Scantrons or your practice, your actual test. If I was to guess, I would think that the reason maybe most of us got this wrong is assuming that this is a 90-degree angle here. And we can't assume that that's a 90-degree angle here because it's not drawn to scale and because there's nothing that tells us that that is a 90-degree angle. It could be a 91-degree angle, right? And so we need to actually solve this without assuming that that is a 90-degree angle, okay? So what we do know is that that angle is 50 degrees that I just wrote there. So what else do we know? We can't find this angle, not enough information. We can't find this angle because we don't have this angle, not enough information. And so what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to use the law of sines at some point. And remember the law of sines, if you have an angle opposite of a side, you can use the law of sines, right? And so what we could do is we can find this here, this B first, and deal with that. So someone can unmute themselves. Tell me, how can we find angle B? Which angles can we put together to find angle B? I wanna hear from y'all. Someone tell us, how can we find this? Or not angle B, I'm sorry, side B. What can we do to find side B? How can we set something up to find side B?
Law of sines with side AB in that triangle.
Side AB. So help me out. That's going to be sine what? Which ones are you using? AB. Oh, this right here?
Yes.
Okay. So sine of what over what?
I have to go get my formula sheet. Give me a
All right. Help her out while she's finding that. You're right. We're going to use law of sines with this one.
Is it sine of 60 over 4.5?
Okay. Sine of 60 over 4.5. That's sending these two.
Equals sine of 80 over x.
Okay, good. Putting these two, sine of 80 over x. Okay. So we're using that. We're basically looking at just this triangle right here, right? And setting up those up together. Sine of 60 over 4.5, sine of 80 over x or b. Let's call it b. It's this, okay? Then we're going to cross multiply. 4.5 sine of 80 equals b times sine of 60. And since we're solving for b, we'll be dividing by sine of 60. So b equals 4.5. Well, actually, we'll put that in the calculator to see what that equals because we need the decimal. So we're gonna put this whole thing in the calculator. So let me get that. So 4.5 sine of 80 over sine of 60. I'm getting 5.117. So b is 5.117. Okay. So you need that first because you don't have enough information to find the angles in the triangle at the top. So then we're going to look at this triangle here. I'm going to go ahead and take that out to the side. This is 50. This is 5.117. X, what we're looking for here. This is 2.5. And so we're looking at how would we find this X now? Here, can we use the law of sines with the information that we have here?
No, we don't have the right variables.
Okay, so then what could we use here to find X? We don't have an angle and a side opposite of each other, so we can't use the law of sines.
Can we use law of cosines?
We can use law of cosines, yes. So refresher on law of cosines, you would label, this is A, I'm just gonna make this A, B, and C. Big A, big B, little c for the angles. Opposite of A, be little a. Opposite of C would be little c. Opposite of B would be little b. And then the formula, if we're trying to find A here, so the formula is A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of A. That's the formula for law of cosines when you're trying to find A, right? And so then it's just a matter of plugging in. So for B, we're plugging in 5.117. For C, we're plugging in 2.5. For B here, 5.117. C is 2.5 times cosine of A. A is 50, right? And that equals A squared. Okay, and so we're solving for A, so I would just, as a shortcut, I would just square root this. I would square root all that. So I would just get A equals the square root of all of that will give you a decimal that you would then round to the nearest tenth, which I believe 36.4. And you would have to have it as 36.4 because it was rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that's how you would solve that problem. My assumption as to why that was a majority missed is because maybe we assumed that that angle was a right angle that was not a right angle, or maybe we didn't round to the nearest tenth. The way that you know whether your question was right or wrong is in the PDF that I sent. If it was A for the free response, then it was marked correct. If it was B for the free response, then it was marked incorrect. Okay, so that was that one. Any questions on that? That was the most commonly missed one. The other ones were primarily, the other most commonly missed ones were around 70% correct. This one's at 30 something. So we can go over those if you like, but I'd actually rather pause and see which questions would you like for me to go over that you missed and you still feel after reviewing it that you would like an explanation on. So that's how I like to what I like to do next. So you tell me what question would be the next one that you feel like you would like for me to go over based on looking at the ones that you missed. Number one, okay. So I got number one. Let me look at what the percentage was on number one. Number one, we had 68%. Get that one correct. So that was actually another one that was one of the ones that was most commonly missed. So let's look at number one. So number one says, two support wires are attached to an antenna and to a point on level ground. The lengths of the support wires and the angles for the support wires are shown in the diagram. Approximately how far apart are the support wires? So we're looking for Oh, where's mine? And it's not working. Okay, so we're looking for the this here because this is one of the wires. This is one of the wires. You're looking for how far away are those two wires. Okay. Now I think if I remember correctly, I told y'all to round this to nearest whole number because I forgot to add that on there. So in finding that, if we can use the law of sines instead of setting up a system, it's a lot easier. So I want to look, can we use the law of sines here? So let's first look at what angles we have that we can find. So we have this is 58. So if that's 58, we can find this by doing 180 minus 58, right? I'm going to get some feedback here. So I'm just going to call on some names and you can unmute yourself or you can type in the chat. So Jimena, what's that going to be right there?
132.
Close.
Oh, 122.
All right, good.
I'm still a little asleep, sorry.
You're good, no worries. Okay, and then Natalia, what else can we find? What other angles can we find now that we know that this is 122?
You can find the last angle in that triangle by adding 122 plus 41 and then subtracting 180 from that.
All right. Help us out with that, Carlos N. Carlos N, you with us? All I hear is Darth Vader. 41, thank you. All right. So why is that helpful? That's helpful because that we don't even have to deal with this triangle right here, right? We can just set up a law of sines in order to find this right here. So let's go with Tanvi. So Tanvi, help us out. How are we gonna set that up to find that angle or that side? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh.
But
Oh. Okay.
Okay. So sine of 122 over 60 equals sine of 41 over x.
Okay, very good. So we're setting those up proportionally to each other. They're opposite angle and side from each other. Someone says should be 17 instead of 41. What did I do? Should be 17 instead of 41. Oh, right here? 122 plus 41 is 163. Wait, Kevin, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. You're talking about this, right? Yeah, 122 plus 41 is 1. Yeah, you're right. Okay, rewind it back. That should be 17. Thank you. So this should be 17. Okay. Correction. Kevin made a correction. It should be 17. Sorry. Okay. So then we're gonna cross multiply. It'll be x times sine of 122 equals 60 times sine of 17. And you solve for x, you just divide by sine of 122. So you're gonna get x equals, and then this you could put in the calculator. It'll give you a decimal, which was, let me see, I have this. This number one, that was 21 point something when you round to the nearest whole number is 21. And again, since it's a free response, if you had A as the answer for the PDF, then that would be marked correct. If you had B, that would be marked incorrect, meaning you got it wrong. Okay, so that was number 1. That was actually another commonly missed one. All right, let me know what other ones. Send me a message on the chat. What other ones did you want me to go over? Number 6, okay. Number 6. Okay. Oh, yes, number 6, this one, okay. Number 6, we had 68% get correct. So this was actually another one. So let me read it. Consider the value of sine n pi over 3 for any integer n. Which statement is true? Okay, let me go to the number 6. So in this case, it says any integer n, and an integer, let's go with, Maria, what is an integer?
Any positive or negative number that's whole.
Okay, good. Any positive, negative, or whole number. Okay, so when we're testing this, we could plug in for n any positive or negative whole number. Okay, this would be one kind of strategy. The statement has to be true if you plug in any positive or negative whole number, not just some of them, but for all of them here, all of them here. Okay, and then for here, some of them here, some of them here. So I would just kind of go through and I would try some numbers. So let's say we test this first one, and let's just start with 1 for n. And you're saying, okay, what is sine of 1 times pi over 3? Or in other words, what is sine of pi over 3? And that's where you could go to the unit circle. Sine of pi over 3, that's a 60-degree angle. That point on the unit circle is 1/2 comma square root of 3 over 2. Sine is the y, which is square root of 3 over 2. So that looks like it works for 1, but you have to try more than 1, right? Because it says all values of n. So let's say you try 2. If you put 2 here, that would be saying sine of 2 pi over 3. And 2 pi over 3 on the unit circle. This is 1 pi over 3, right? 60 degrees. Another pi over 3 is over here. So now this point is negative 1/2 comma square root of 3 over 2. So sine of 2 pi over 3 is still 3 pi over square root of 3 pi over 2. So it's looking like it could be the answer, but there is an exception to that. Think about when is it going to be false? And anybody can answer there. When is this one going to be false? Or what integer could it possibly be false? Or what could make this not true? Three pi over 2, I got 3 pi over, wait. 3 pi, I can't do 3 pi over 2 though because it's over 3. Idea is, when could this one be false? Or is it the answer? It could be the answer too. Negative number, okay. So yes, if the y is negative. So if we put, like let's say we put 1, 2, 3, 4 pi over 3 here, okay? If we kept going with it. So then this would be another pi over 3, and then that would be 4 pi over 3. That order pair would be negative 1/2 comma negative square root of 3 over 2, right? And then now that doesn't work with this because it has to be positive. So that would be a way you can check A. All right. And then you can go to B and just kind of work down like that. So for tangent is y divided by x. This one you can just eliminate. Well, let's say we try 1 pi over 3, tangent of 1 pi over 3. 1 pi over 3 is here. That's 1/2 comma square root of 3 over 2, and tangent is y divided by x, right? So if you do square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, which is y divided by x, that will give us square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. These will cross out. You're going to get square root of 3. So that works there. It says all values, though, so you got to keep going. So let's say we tried 2 pi over 3. Over here, that's going to be negative 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. If you do y over x, that's not going to work, right? Why is that not going to work? Let's do Landon. Why is that not going to work?
Because it'll be negative square root of 3, not positive.
Yeah, it would be a negative square root of 3, right? And this is a positive, so then you know that's not going to work for all values. By the way, another way you could do this that would save time on a test is you could put your calculator in radians and type that in, right? And then type that in and see if they're equivalent. Okay, so then we're left with 2. Okay, so let's say we look at this one. This one says some values of n. So that means that if every integer you plug in might not work, but some of them would work. So that gives a little bit more flexibility. So it says cosine of n pi over 3 has to be equal to 0. So we have to think, is cosine ever negative anywhere? Okay. So is cosine ever negative anywhere? I'm sorry, not negative. Is cosine ever equal to 0? Okay. So it was probably going to be one of our quadrantal, right? This is 1 comma 0, 0 comma 1, negative 1 comma 0, 0 comma negative 1. So where could cosine be of n pi over 3 be equal to 0? So cosine is equal to 0 here, and it's equal to 0 here, right? This angle right here is what in radians, though? That angle is pi over 2, right? And so if you look at it, we can only plug in an integer there, right? And so it has to be a positive or negative whole number. So because this is divided by 3, there's not really anything you can plug in there for n that's going to make it equal pi over 2. Because this would have to be 1.5, right? 1.5 over 3 is equal to pi over 2, because 1.5 is half of 3. But that's not an integer. Same thing down here. This angle all the way down to here, where cosine is 0, is 3 pi over 2. Hello, I think someone joined with their sound. So now we're looking at, can we make this be 3 pi over 2? And no, you would have to put a decimal at the top, right? So that's how you know this one is not true. For D, however, it is possible because cosine equals negative 1 right here, right? And that angle is pi. From here to here, that angle is pi. And so is it possible to make this angle pi? Yes, if n is what? Anybody can answer that. You can make this pi if n is what? 3. Yeah, exactly. Because 3 pi over 3 is just pi, and cosine of pi is equal to negative 1. And it says for some value, so that works. That's one of the values that works. It also works if you do multiple rotations. So that's why D is going to be the answer. Okay. So that's the other one that was a commonly missed one. Hopefully that clarifies. All right, what other ones? Send a message on the chat. What other ones from the test would you like for me to go over? So we went over number 22, we went over number 1, and this one was number, what number is it? 6. Number 3, okay. Number 3, get rid of this thing. Okay. Number 3. Number 3 says, what is the exact value of the trigonometric function cosine of negative 870 degrees? One quick thing on these, whenever you have these kind of questions and you're taking a test, it's important to check your answer to make sure you're right. What I could do is I could put cosine of negative 870. If my calculator's in degrees right, it will give me a decimal. I can compare that with these to see if it is equivalent. So that would be one just quick test taking strategy. But if we want to find this, we would draw this on a unit circle, negative 870. So we're going the negative direction. We know it's a multiple rotation. So you would go around, that's a negative 360. You could go around again, another 360. That would put us at negative 720. And so we would have how much left to go to negative 870? We would have 150, right? So the remaining 150 would be, that's 90. And then we're gonna go another 60. So we're gonna be over here. Okay. And then that would be, this order pair is negative square root of 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. And it's asking for cosine. Cosine is x. And so it is negative square root of 3 over 2. So that's for that one. Okay. All right, what other ones? 13, okay. 13, where's 13? 13. Okay. So number 13, find the exact value of 1/2 times cosine of 465 times cosine of 75. By the way, one thing to encourage you about this test, that our average was 85, which is lower than usual, still not bad. Above 80% is considered college and career ready. I did make this test slightly more difficult than your peers test in other classes, because the original test I felt was a little bit too easy compared to the level of rigor we were doing in class. So I did make it a little bit more challenging. Don't hate me for it, but I did a different test this time with questions like the ones that we're going over right now, because I think it's important to kind of push your level of rigor. So just heads up. So looking at this question, y'all are mad at me now. I can feel it in the computer screen. I'm just kidding. The first thing you do is find cosine of 465. Okay, and you find this is going to be a decimal though, because cosine of 75 is not going to be a whole number. Yeah, because 75 is over here. It's not on the unit circle, right? So on this problem, actually, there is not a way to do this problem based on what we talked about so far without a calculator. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Yeah, so with this problem, I meant to make this just realizing this now, I meant to make that a unit circle value. So with this problem, you would have to type this whole thing in the calculator. It would give you a decimal. Then you would have to type in each of these, and which would give you a decimal. And you would have to see which one matches. Based on what we've talked about thus far, there's not a way to do that. I meant to make that a unit circle value, but cosine of 75 is not on the unit circle, so it's going to be, yeah. So sorry about that. That's just going to be a calculator question for them. All right, what other ones? Number 9. Okay. Okay. Number 9 had 72%. Right. So the question says, what is a reference angle for an angle that measures negative 17 pi over 4? And so first we want to sketch this angle. The way that y'all said you prefer doing it is by dividing those instead of breaking it down, if I remember correctly from class. And so the way I would break that up is do 17 divided by 4, which the closest that's going to get is 4, right? So it's negative 4 pi. And then you have a remaining 4 times 4 is 16, so you have a remaining 1. Right? And so you would sketch that. First, I would do negative 4 pi. Remember, 1 pi is 180 degrees, and we're going the negative direction. So this is negative pi. You're going to go another. That's 2 pi negative. That's 3 pi negative. That's 4 pi negative. And then what we have remaining to go is this 1 pi over 4. So that's right here. So now we're here. Okay. And the question is asking for the reference angle. And the reference angle, remember, is the angle formed by the triangle closest to the x-axis. So if we were to draw this one, it would be like that. And so we're looking at this angle would be our reference angle. And remember, a reference angle is always going to be smaller than 90 degrees. In this case, that angle is 45 degrees, which in radians is just pi over 4. That's our reference angle. Okay. All right. Any other ones that you would like for me to go over from this test? Send me a message on the chat. Based on what you got wrong when we looked over it. While y'all are looking, I'm going to see if there's any more commonly missed ones. So send me a message on the chat if there's any more. That you would like for me to go over. Hey, on the flip side though, I put some pretty easy sine and cosine graph questions compared to what we did when we were doing the lessons, right? These are a little bit more simple than the bigger transformations. So last call, any last questions? Okay, number 5. Okay, so number 5. Number 5 says if cosine of the angle equals 5 over 13 and sine is less than 0, what is cotangent of the angle? So this is where you have to remember all students take calculus, which is kind of the shortcut to recognizing which quadrant we are in, right? All are positive students take calculus, excuse me. So here sine is positive, here tangent is positive, here cosine is positive. So this cosine is positive. So therefore, it has to be where all of them are positive, or it has to be where cosine is positive. So it can't be over here and over here. Here it says sine is less than 0, meaning sine has to be negative. So that leaves us with this one, because here all of them are positive. So we know that we can go ahead and draw a reference angle here. We know that it is in that quadrant. And then we know cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent is 5 for this angle. So this is 5. Hypotenuse is 13. And then if you remember kind of your special triangles, there's 3, 4, 5, and then there's 5, 12, 13. Or you can do the Pythagorean theorem, but in this case you can see, okay, we have 5 and 13. So this is 12. But then maybe if you missed this, it could be possible you forgot that on that 12, what do we have to make sure that we include? Yeah, exactly, a negative sign, right? Because it's going down. You always have to be careful with that with these. So it's going to be negative 12. So then when we find cotangent, cotangent is the opposite of tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Cotangent is adjacent over opposite. So adjacent to this is 5. Opposite of this is negative 12. So negative 5 over 12. So that's going to be B. Okay, B. Any other ones? That you would like for me to go over? From the test. So last call, you can send a message in the chat. Okay. If there are no more questions, we'll pause there. A couple of things before I end the call. Number one, there is a practice posted, but all practices are due on Friday. It is on trig identities, just what we did last class. There we are going to move on from, or we have one more day of trig identities tomorrow, which would be a newer trig identity, and then we're going to move on to a new concept called vectors. I sent the calendar on Google Classroom. Check that out. Next week is the last week of the 6 weeks. Before we go, just I sent an update video to Algebra 2 because I don't get to see Algebra 2 or do Zoom live calls and kind of talk to them, and because we do Edpuzzle videos that I just sent. And so I kind of at the end of the video, I told them kind of some advice through this time, and so I thought I'd share that with y'all as well. Just as you think about taking care of yourself in the midst of being at home in the midst of stress of figuring out online learning. So I just thought I'd share a few tips and take it or leave it, if you will. So one of the things I told them was just take breaks sometimes from news, from social media, from schoolwork, even from family. I think it's oftentimes you can get this overwhelming sense of information, just constant notifications. And I think it's important to take breaks. That's something that I personally do sometimes, is just put my phone on mute or silent and just put it to the side. So especially it can be anxious as you see a lot of this news coming out. And so just take breaks sometimes. I think it's important for yourself. Secondly, kind of take care of your body, whatever that looks like. Physical activity is important, especially being in the house for such a long period of time. We know there's a definite connection between your ability to cognitively think and how much physical exercise you are doing, and just your mental health and all of that. And so whether it looks like stretching or deep breaths or meditating or walking or exercising, being creative with that, given that gyms are closed. But one of the things that me and my family do, we take walks up and down the street or in a park where there's nobody, in just an open field, just to kind of just get out and get in the open air and just kind of exercise. And I just feel a lot better as a result of that. Also, just do something that you enjoy, whatever that is. Take time to work on some of your hobbies. Preferably it doesn't include technology, but do something that you enjoy every now and then. And talk to people that make you happy, whoever that is, friends, family. Talk to people that make you happy via FaceTime if they're not with you, or via text, whatever, social media. I think it's important to stay connected and not isolated. And focus on what you can control. I think we tend to kind of get stressed when we start to over fixate on things that we really don't have control over. Unfortunately, this is our new normal for now, and we can't control certain aspects of that. And so focus on what you can control, which is your own happiness, how you're responding to it, how you're making the most out of the situation. Just focusing on that and really just doing the best that you can do, recognizing that this isn't perfect. I know it's something I tell myself. I'm not going to be able to teach the same way I would like to, and it's okay. Just doing the best that you can with what you have is important to take note of. So for that, whatever that means for you, not trying to be perfect with everything, but just doing the best that you can given the situation that we have at hand, and just supporting one another, supporting your friends, your family, your coworkers. And I'm always a support here for y'all, whatever you need. So just wanted to kind of end with just some tips, stuff that I've been personally trying to do during this time, and just thought I'd share with you if that's of any encouragement to you. So with that being said, if there's any last minute questions or comments, if not, I'll end the call, but I'll just give you a few minutes if you have anything you want to share on the chat. Any questions or anything like that? I know I said some updates at the beginning about class. Then we just went over the test. I talked about how the practice is going to be posted. If there are no questions, no comments, no concerns. If you have not already sent a message on the chat saying here, then please do send a message on the chat saying here, because when I end the call, it kind of records all of the chat, and then I'll use that for just keeping track of who's present. So if you haven't already done that, please do send me a message that says here. So if there are no questions, you can go ahead and, or one question, we'll still have the extra bathroom pass. Good question, Maria. Extra bathroom passes. You still have the ones that you have. I'm going to end up, we're going to use that for, I'm still deciding what to do about tests. As of right now, I plan on potentially not having tests because I think it's going to be difficult to have a test online. So as of right now, that is my thought. No tests until we come back, if we come back. So I will get back to you on that, because I know the 6 weeks ends next week, and you have supposed to have a test category in for grading purposes. So I'm going to think about how I can be creative with that. But as of right now, my thought is no test. I might just put an average of your average will be, your average in the class will be your average test. So maybe you can use the bathroom passes for something else, but I'll have an update for you by next week about that. So the question about bathroom pass. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, y'all take care then. I will see y'all tomorrow at 10. So have a great day. Enjoy the day. Take a minute to go outside. All right. I'm going to end the call if there are no other thoughts. So y'all take care. Bye, everybody.